You are listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today we are here with a very special guest and a writer for Best Holistic Life, Debra Reis. Debra is a clinical nurse, specialist, and certified as a Healing Touch Practitioner, clinical Aromatherapist, and Naya movement instructor. Debra is published author and presenter on holistic modalities. She is the founder of the Supportive Therapy Engagement Program, or S.T.E.P, with a mission of sharing self-care tools to calm your chaos, quickly helping others, and teach ways to reduce stress and increase your joy. And that is why and what gets her out of bed every morning. So I'm super excited to have you here with us today, Debra. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jana. I appreciate it.
One of the first things we ask all of our guests is to share their story of hope. I honestly believe that our stories of hope are heartbeats we put out into the world that really start connecting people to us and giving them a moment of hope, right? So
Yes.
do you want to share your story with us today?
Sure. I really started into the holistic health arena, holistic practice. I can remember a specific time in my nursing career where it stopped me in my tracks. And I said to myself, there has got to be more than just putting the pieces back together for somebody. And that's when the whole world of different modalities opened up for me. And at the time, I wasn't sure. It's kind of like that inner voice calling, like you need to explore this, you need to get this together. And then just looking at how that really started to impact my life and actually became a part of my life and then part of my clinical life. Like we need to be doing something different in our healthcare practice, not only what we do for ourselves, but what we might be doing for others and sharing with others every day. And then a few years ago, I had a personal scare myself with a diagnosis that involved a major surgery. And I did not, I think when we are in this field or, it's like, okay, I'm going to just pop right back up and get right back on track here. Well, that didn't happen. And so I really had to explore my tools, like, what is it that I need to be doing to be integrating back into my life? What is this experience and this diagnosis showing me that I need to pay attention to what's happening in my life? And that really has been a huge step in what I'm sharing currently and how people can really integrate these therapies, tools, and I really believe they should be integrated as part of our whole healthcare plan for ourselves.
Well, Debra, I totally agree with you because I feel like that's our intuitive side, right? And it's always talking to us, but sometimes we get so busy. We're like, yeah, I don't have time for that message right now. Shut it down, right? And then pretty soon something breaks and you have no choice but to start receiving those messages and dealing with them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you'll find different times in your life where those messages kind of come out stronger.
Even now, I know better. I know not to ignore messages my body's sending me. And even now I'm like, I don't have time, maybe later tonight. And then later tonight comes and goes. And then the next day it brings me that message again. And I turn it off for another day, thinking if I ignore it, it'll go away.
Right. I know. And somehow it keeps coming back.
I know. So I would love to know more about what you're doing with Calm Your Chaos. Like, what does that even mean to you?
Oh, yes. Well, what I have found in, with people, with family, with friends, is that we are really busy people, right? I mean, and I think even more so within these last few years with the pandemic and just other things out in the news, it just tends to really heighten our anxiety, our chaos. And sometimes that chaos of the outside world starts to filter into our inside world. really can create this angst and sometimes this feeling of how do I stop this hamster wheel that I feel like I'm on? So that's where I feel the calm your chaos. My real mission then was, we really need to do something. And there are so many things that can be done in 5 minutes or less. And that's really been my goal. What can we do to bring balance to yourself or to maybe another person in 5 minutes or less? And absolutely, we can do this. And it is something that has been a passion for me to let people know, yes, there are tools and there are many tools. So if one doesn't speak to you, let's look at something different. So there is so many things that we can do. And, we do these different modalities as holistic providers, healers. And oftentimes that's what I hear. This is a great technique, a great body of work, but how can I do it really fast? So this is one of the things that I've been really out there sharing with people.
I know that even as a mindset coach, I still have to be aware. I'm also an intuitive and an empath. So I was just working with a client and her anxiety was getting out of control, and it was all through text messages. And I noticed that my anxiety was rising, and because I was feeding off of her anxiety. So I would say, like, step one is be aware of where it's coming from and that it's happening. And so I immediately stopped the conversation. I said, look, we need to have a face-to-face talk because I feel like you're really upset over nothing. So we want to fix that. And I took some time to take a couple deep breaths, do a little tapping, send out some good energy. And I sent her immediately a link to my calendar and said, I can't wait to see your smiling, beautiful face when we get on the call. And I already have a couple solutions for this. So we've got this. And immediately the whole situation turned around. That doesn't always happen, by the way.
Right.
But in this case, it did because they have a working relationship with me. But what are some of the tools and how do we even become aware that maybe even that's not, I know that a lot of times what I'm feeling isn't even what I'm feeling. It's the energy I'm picking up around me. But that doesn't mean I can still not put out that vibration to change that.
Yes. And I think you brought up a really good point, is awareness. And oftentimes when I might be seeing people, that's one of the things they'll be saying, I have anxiety at home. I have anxiety at work. I have anxiety with family situations. And I'm not doing anything. I don't know what to do. And that's one of my first responses is, you know what, you're aware. So that's big when you can be aware that you need to shift or you need to change something. And so I put some of the modalities, I call them 3 pillars. So the one pillar is relaxation techniques. So oftentimes as I'm starting with patients or clients, it might be, what can we do? What are you in control of? You know what? You're in control of your breath. So let's look and breathing. So let's look at some simple tools that you might be able to do with breathing that would fall under the relaxation pillar. And I also like to bring in aromatherapy if that speaks to people. And it doesn't speak to everybody, but it is a really hot topic these days. And so my focus is making sure you're doing this safely and what kinds of aromas might be helpful for anxiety or stress or just to kind of energize or feeling that renewal. There's different things that we can look at, and how we can do that quickly and safely are things that we'll look at. And then the third pillar that I really love is movement, gentle movement. So looking at what kinds of things, and that is one of in the research world for fatigue and energy, it's one of the main tools that is really been supported by research is to move your body. And it might be a simple stretching, it might be walking, it doesn't have to be hardcore aerobics. It really is something that is just getting up and maybe stretching and moving a little bit is all we really need to do. And if we even do that every hour, then we're just getting that energy flowing. So looking at what kinds of what kinds of situations might be helpful for that person and their plan.
By the way, I am so glad you brought up aromatherapy because I've been doing it for 10 years. And immediately after we get off our podcast interview, I'm interviewing one of the leading doctors, and they call it Aroma Psychotherapy,
Yeah.
and how they actually connected brain devices to check your brain waves, right? And introduce an aroma and watch those completely change, especially in children that are autistic. By the
Yes.
way, if you have an autistic child, don't run out and get an aroma and start pound because they are super sensitive. You have to gradually introduce these sort of things or they're not going to like it and you're going to have a bad experience. But I've been using aromatherapy for so long that I use it every day and it's diffusing in our house constantly. I know what works well for me. And when I'm in the car, and I have to drive somewhere and I know my anxiety level is going to go up because it's crazy in LA, I put it on my wrist. You see me driving, sipping my wrist, and it literally does immediately start to relax and calm me.
Yes, yes, and absolutely. What we often do in the setting is put it on a tissue so that people can, breathe it in or tuck it in a pocket or, or even if they're wearing a mask, they can kind of put it in their mask. And so it is super easy to use. And yeah, absolutely. When we think about aromatherapy, that's aroma is through the nose. And so, yeah, where is it going? The nose is a direct link to the brain. So absolutely, when we think about breathing and when you were talking about, putting your wrist up to your nose, that's really what you're doing is getting those molecules directly into your brain. And you're shifting that energy that might be one of anxiety or stress or whatever it might be, but you're actually that chemistry of your aroma, of your oil is working with your body chemistry to shift and make it in a more balanced place. So I agree. Don't underestimate the power of your nose because it really is something that can be great to use and to complement what you're doing for your own health and well-being.
And for those of you who've never used aromatherapy, I'm telling you, you have. They use it in sales when they're selling homes. That's why they bake cookies. So when you walk in, you get the feeling of a home. It like changes like, oh, this is my home. Like they got cookies. It smells so good. Like they use it in stores. They use it to help get you excited about shopping. They use it everywhere and we're not even aware of it. But there is a huge, like I think about walking into someone's house during Thanksgiving when you walk in, you get that first whiff of the turkey and all the food's cooking and automatically I go back to my childhood and I feel like at ease and comforted. So I think it's huge. And for those of you who haven't, I'm telling you, you've been experiencing it and probably not even aware of it.
You are very right. I mean, marketing absolutely uses smells and aromas to keep us in a place, whether it's a store or a home or, something like that. But yeah, they absolutely have been using this. It's very well known.
Well, I know that you're well known for your work with practitioners, and you have a therapy engagement program or supportive therapy engagement program called S.T.E.P. Let's learn a little bit about what that is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, S.T.E.P is it's an online program, and it's geared towards healthcare providers. And I know many people are aware that the healthcare arena has been really taking a hit in the last couple of years with the pandemic and the stress that our providers have been under. And actually, this is a program I started putting together before that even came about, but I feel it's even more important now because of the trauma. And actually we're facing trauma in the workplace with what we're seeing, maybe what's even happening within the workplace. And really, this should be of concern for all of us, whether you're a healthcare provider in that system or not. Because when people are feeling stressed and traumatized, it leads to burnout, it leads to turnover, and we are absolutely losing good people in the system, which definitely is affecting our healthcare system. So my goal is that we have tools that are part of the supportive therapy engagement program or S.T.E.P that are under those three pillars that I mentioned: the relaxation, the aromatherapy, and the gentle movement therapies that the practitioners can use for themselves when they feel this stress or anxiety starting to well up. something they can do very quickly that can help bring them back to balance. And these are really quick and easy tools that they can learn. But I do put the science and the research behind it so that they know it's not just something I plucked out of the air, but it is something that, does have some background to it, some science behind it, research experience behind it. And we are using aromatherapy in our healthcare settings as well. So things like that. And we're gradually increasing more of the movement aspect too, but relaxation therapies and aromatherapy is probably something that's being already kind of integrated. And now we're starting more with the gentle movement. So that's kind of exciting to see. But there are also tools, not just for the practitioner, but when you have that patient or client that is all of a sudden now anxious, or when we get them in maybe the MRI or, for a treatment, all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, and the anxiety starts to well up. Instead of reaching for a medication, and that's going to take time away from you, talk with them or help them with a strategy that's going to take less than 5 minutes and will help them come back to balance, and use that as a primary tool instead of going right for a medication or something of that nature. So it is taking some shifting of thought, but I think it is definitely better for our patients, for us, and for our whole healthcare system.
By the way, I think this is so needed, especially now. It's always been needed, but especially now. I have a sister who is an RN and she works in the CCU, the critical care cardiac unit.
Right.
And I can tell like the toll on her just from her regular stuff without introducing COVID or any of the other things. She also works for Mercier, so she's a flight nurse.
Oh.
And so she's like got a lot of stress. And I notice now, and she's a younger sister, and I notice now when we have a conversation, she can wind up a lot faster. Like she gets, her stress level goes from 0 to 100 very fast. Yes. Because of the situation, right?
Yes.
So I think that this is something that would definitely benefit her to learn those things. And let's face it, if you're in the healthcare business, your movement you've got down, you're constantly on the move, right?
Right. Yes.
I mean, being aware of those movements, like I'm going to go run the flight of stairs for a second or walk the flight of stairs up and down and get some deep breaths and come back in. I know that that's one of the things she does is she'll say, you know what, I'm going to step out, do the stairs for a second and come back. And it gives her like, it's more her breathing that she gets doing when she's going up and down and that helps clear that out. So I love that. Where can people connect if they want to know more about S.T.E.P or calming their chaos?
Absolutely. My website has both of those programs there and more information. So my website is my name, debrareis.com. So they can certainly come and, and really look at those programs much, much more. And also you're able to connect with me through that as well. So if you want to do a discovery call, which is free, and learn more about it, that would be absolutely perfect to do.
And of course, we're going to have all of those in the show notes. You can connect with her very easily. Yes. So I want to leave them with a few things. So we learned tips on how to calm yourself, but maybe how do they recognize that this is the time to get started? It's like me, I understand my body's cues that something's wrong and I'm too busy tomorrow, tonight, I'll carve out an hour for that. And it doesn't happen because life gets in the way. Hey, I'm guilty of it too. And I know better. But what are some of the tools they can do? Maybe they're in a really stressful situation. Let's use a healthcare provider and they're working in the CCU and that is stressful. Like you have people dying on you. There's lots going on. And now they've cut back to how many, it used to be, I think it was one nurse to patient, then it was one nurse to 2 patients. And now I think they're up to 1 nurse to 3 patients. Yes. And so it is getting crazy for them. How do they recognize and go carve out that couple of minutes to give themselves what they need to show up better and do better and in a better state?
I feel there's a couple of things. First of all is before you even enter a room, it is something that they're doing in one setting where they put their hand, there's a hand outside the door and they put their hand on that hand and maybe the other hand on their heart center. And it's just a reminder what I'm here for, what I'm doing, getting back into my heart space. And if that's not something you can, I mean, just putting your hands on your heart, taking a deep breath, and maybe bringing up a memory. So this can be a trigger. So when I do this, I have that memory of, that favorite place I love to be, or maybe the birth of a child, or your wedding day, or whatever was that beautiful time for you. This is my reminder, and it can immediately, boom, get you into that centered space and allow you that renewal. Because it really comes down, if you're not doing something for yourself, and whether you're a healthcare provider, a mom, a teacher, whatever, if you're not renewing and providing that time for yourself, then you're not being able to give your best when you are doing service for others, whatever that service might be. So it's a good reminder. I suggest people start their day, even if it means you carve out 5 minutes more, like you get up 5 minutes early, so that you are starting your day just with breath work, maybe breathing in with your aromatherapy to get you grounded, to help you in being focused before you even start your day. That can make a huge difference than jumping out of bed, get your coffee, and get in the car and go. It's a much different focus that you have than when you can take a few minutes and just center yourself. And then I like doing it at the end of the day, just to kind of clear everything out, clear the day away from you, and just again get back into that place of just being centered, being in balance, and ready for a rest and renewal at bedtime. And you can add a little bit of stretching if that feels right for you. That can be all part of those 5 minutes. You can do all of that in 5 minutes or less. And so that is something, if you're in a clinical or you're in a work setting that's chaotic, because not just the hospital, I know there's other places where there's chaos, just taking a moment. Some people are doing this at the top of every hour as they're able to, and they might just be kind of like walking or running in place, or just taking that time to breathe at the top of the hour. So again, those are quick tools or quick reminders that you can do for yourself, which ultimately is going to affect those who are around you and those who you might be caring for or doing service for. So yeah, those are some quick ideas, quick tips that might be helpful.
By the way, that truly works because I'm terrified of flying, mostly because I'm claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that in NLP anchoring. So when you put your hand over your heart, you're anchoring into an emotion. And I always put my hand on the plane as I'm going in, my hand over my heart. I take in a deep breath. And for me, that vision is all the millions of other trips I've taken. And I've already landed and I'm happy and I'm excited. And it tells me like, you've done this before, right? It was fun. It was great. Yeah. And I anchor into that emotion before I step on the plane, and it works. It really does work. You can do that for anything. You don't always have to have it over your heart. Like sometimes I'm just pinching my hand to anchor a good memory, but you can create anchors in your life that really tap you back into that beautiful memory that you want to get through whatever it is you're going through. So those were great tips. Yes. Debra, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I already learned so much. I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm so glad that you submitted an article to Best Holistic Life.
Yes, thank you. I so enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much. And yes, I appreciate being here. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.